This video covers using Generate Views to understand how Sefaira interprets a Revit model, including how various elements are used in Sefaira's analysis. Sefaira automatically identifies entities for analysis based upon Revit families. The analysis engine only needs the thermal envelope, floor plates, shading, and, in the case of daylight analysis, interior partitions. Therefore, Sefaira only interprets wall, floor, window, curtain wall, and roof families. All other types of families are simply ignored. So for example, if I were to click on a wall and take a look at the properties of this element, the two items in this panel that Sefaira cares about are the type of family, in this case it's a wall family, so it will be recognized, and the function type, exterior versus interior, which determines whether it's an exterior wall or interior. The other properties in Revit are ignored, so for instance the R value of this wall, and instead is set in the Sefaira interface. It's important to check that Sefaira is interpreting the model correctly. In order to do this, you can open up the Sefaira dialog box and click on Generate Sefaira Views. This will create a few new 3D views in the project browser. In these views, the elements that Sefaira is interpreting are isolated and color-coded by type, so you can quickly understand how Sefaira is interpreting the model. The view that is shown by default is the Sefaira Daylighting Analysis view, and this includes the thermal envelope of the building, floor plates, as well as interior partitions, which of course will block daylight, and mullions on the exterior of the building, which are important for daylight analysis as well. You can see that the landscape, furniture, and any other types of elements have been ignored automatically, and what's left is just what's needed for analysis. Let's take a look at the energy analysis view. This is similar to the daylight analysis, but it only includes the envelope, floor plates, and shading elements. It does not include interior elements, and it also does not include mullions in the curtain wall. And the reason for that is that, first of all, they're not required to do accurate energy analysis, and second of all, the additional geometry can cause the model to run more slowly or in some cases even fail. So it's important to be on the correct view when you're doing the associated type of analysis. So the energy view for energy analysis and the daylighting view for daylighting analysis. In addition to these views, you'll see an exterior view which isolates exterior walls and windows and curtain walls, and an interior view which will isolate interior elements. This is important because one common problem is getting the function type of walls and windows backwards. And this is problematic because Sefaira interprets elements with an exterior function type as having heat gains and losses associated with the envelope. Let's go back to the daylight analysis view and discuss how the different families are used for analysis. Roof elements, of course, have thermal transfer between the interior and exterior. Likewise, wall families have thermal transfer between inside and out, at least those that are marked with the exterior function type. Interior walls, of course, should be marked as interior and do not have thermal transfer between inside and out. However, they do block daylighting. Any floor elements will add to the square footage of the building, and the square footage is used to calculate occupancy, lighting power, and equipment power. That means that any exterior elements, such as balconies or landscape elements, should be tagged as shading or ignored rather than floor. Shading elements, for example the sunshades that are modeled in this building, do not have thermal transfer but block sunlight. And essentially anything outside of the building thermal envelope that blocks sunlight should be tagged as shading, either fixed shading elements like this one or surrounding buildings. Let's take a moment and look at how you mark something as shading in Sefaira. If I look at the properties panel, I can see that this was modeled as a floor element. But if I scroll all the way to the bottom of this panel, you'll notice that there are two checkboxes at the bottom, Ignore for Sefaira and Shading for Sefaira. And this one has been tagged as shading. Therefore, it will be interpreted as a shading element. If an element is tagged as ignore for Sefaira, it will simply be discarded and not used in any of the analysis. Windows and curtain walls, of course, have thermal transfer between interior and exterior as long as they are of an exterior function type, and they will also have solar gains in that case. In addition, the operability of the windows that is set in Revit will be used for natural ventilation calculations, which we go into in other videos. Wall families with an interior function type, of course, have no thermal transfer but block sunlight. And similarly, any window or curtain wall elements with an interior function type are not used for energy analysis, have no thermal transfer, but do let light through and therefore are useful for daylighting analysis. As I mentioned earlier, properties of these elements, for example, the R values of walls, are not used in Sefaira's analysis. Instead, they're input separately in the Sefaira interface. This is to allow you to quickly explore multiple R values without having to change your model, as well as to avoid accidentally inputting bad information into Sefaira. For example, a model whose properties have not been configured yet. The properties of the elements can be established in the Properties panel of the Real-Time Analysis plugin, or in the Envelope tab of the web application. In the Real-Time Analysis panel, if you click the Properties tab, you'll see that this is where you're able to set properties of walls, roofs, floors, and windows within the plugin interface. And we'll go into more detail on how to set up these types of properties in subsequent videos.